They called her the mute Omega, the broken girl, the one who couldn't speak, couldn't fight, couldn't matter. The Moon Court had 1,000 wolves who could command armies, negotiate treaties, kill with a glance. Lucy G. Badger wasn't one of them. She had no voice, no rank, no power, just hands that could sign warnings no one wanted to see. So when she tried to stop the assassination, when she threw herself across cold marble and reached for the poisoned goblet while the court laughed, they expected her to fail. They expected her to be dragged away like garbage. They did not expect the air to crack open. They did not expect the silver wolf, massive, ancient, impossible, to step into the hall like judgment itself. And they definitely did not expect Lucy G. Badger, the girl they'd spent years ignoring, to be the reason every alpha, beta, and lord in the Moon Court hit their knees and bowed. But that came later. First came the morning Lucy woke up knowing someone was going to die. The Moon Court didn't do quiet. It did marble echoes, steel boots on stone, whispered alliances that cut deeper than claws. It did chandeliers like frozen starlight and banners that looked like they'd been dyed in old blood. It did power, loud, proud, unquestioned. So when Lucy opened her eyes in her small servants' quarters and heard nothing, her wolf stirred in her blood like something waking from a long, dangerous sleep. Silence in the Moon Court was wrong. Silence meant something had already gone bad, or something was about to. Lucy sat up slowly, her thin blanket pooling around her waist. The room was cold. It was always cold in the servants' wing. Stone walls, narrow window, a single candle she wasn't supposed to waste. She'd lived here for 7 years. 7 years since the fire that killed her first pack and stole her voice. 7 years of scrubbing floors, delivering messages, and staying so small that the court forgot she existed. Most days, that was survival. Today, it felt like a countdown. Lucy pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart beat. Too fast, too hard. Her wolf was pacing behind her ribs, restless and anxious in a way it had never been before. Wolves were born in shades of midnight and ash and brown. Lucy had always suspected hers was different. She'd seen it in dreams, a great wolf with fur like moonlight and eyes like a blade's edge. A myth, a bedtime story, a warning in her bones. She stood and dressed quickly, simple blue dress, worn but clean, the kind of thing that made her invisible in hallways full of silk and armor. Her white blonde hair hung loose around her shoulders. Some of the court called her Ghost Girl because of it, because of her pale skin and the way she moved through rooms without making a sound. Lucy didn't mind the nickname. Ghosts could see things the living missed. She stepped into the corridor, and the wrongness hit her harder. The air smelled different, sharper, like metal, and something bitter she couldn't name. The torches along the walls flickered unevenly, as if the palace itself was holding its breath. Lucy's fingers moved instinctively, signing to herself in the empty hallway. Danger. Something's wrong. Pay attention. No one answered. No one ever did. She made her way toward the kitchens where she was supposed to help prepare for the day's ceremony. The Moon Court was hosting allied packs today. 30 of them, each with their own alphas and agendas. There would be treaties signed, oaths sworn, a ceremonial toast to unity. Unity, a pretty word for control. Lucy had heard the servants whispering about it for weeks. How Alpha Regent Andrew Davidson was under pressure to secure alliances after a decade of border wars. How one wrong move could spark rebellion. How everyone was watching to see if the young regent could hold the court together, or if it would fracture into chaos. Lucy didn't care about politics, but she cared about people, and something in her blood was screaming that today someone important was going to get hurt. She pushed open the kitchen door and froze. The head cook, a broad-shouldered beta named Marcus, was standing over a silver tray with a goblet on it. The goblet gleamed in the firelight, polished, ceremonial, the kind used for important toasts. Lucy's wolf snarled. Not a sound, just a feeling, sharp and cold, like claws dragging down her spine. Marcus looked up and saw her. Lucy. Good. I need you to take this to the Great Hall. It's for the Regent. Moon wine for the toast. Lucy stared at the goblet, her vision blurred, and suddenly she wasn't in the kitchen anymore. She was in the Great Hall, torches blazing, banners snapping in a wind that shouldn't exist indoors. 100 wolves in ceremonial armor watching the dais. And on the dais, Alpha Regent Andrew Davidson stood with the goblet in his hand. He lifted it to his lips. He drank, and then he fell. Not gracefully, not like a warrior going down in battle. He collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut, convulsing, choking, his face going grey as the court erupted into chaos. Lucy saw Kyle Dumas, captain of the Royal Guard, lunge forward, but he was too late. She saw James, the court's favoured strategist, standing near the steps with a smile on his face. A smile. And she saw herself, kneeling on cold marble, signing desperately, uselessly, while no one looked at her, while Andrew Davidson died. Lucy gasped and staggered, catching herself on the kitchen counter. Marcus frowned. You all right, girl? Lucy's hands shook as she lifted them. Don't. Poison. Danger. Marcus blinked. What? She signed again, sharper, more frantic. Poison. In the goblet. Don't let him drink it. Marcus's frown deepened. Then he laughed. Not cruelly, but like she'd told a joke he didn't understand. Lucy, no one's been in here but me and the other cooks. The moon wine came straight from the cellar, sealed. It's fine. Lucy shook her head violently. She pointed at the goblet, then made the sign for death, a sharp slash across her throat. Marcus's expression shifted from amusement to concern. You're scaring yourself with nothing, girl. Go take a walk. Clear your head. I'll get someone else to deliver this. No. Lucy lunged forward and grabbed his wrist, her fingers digging in hard enough to make him wince. Please. Listen. Danger. Marcus pulled his arm free, irritation flickering across his face. Enough. I don't have time for this. Go. Lucy opened her mouth, uselessly, hopelessly, and no sound came out. It never did. The fire that killed her parents had taken her voice when she was 13. She'd woken up choking on smoke, screaming for help that never came, and when the healers finally pulled her from the wreckage, her throat was scarred and silent. Some said it was trauma. Others said it was punishment. Lucy had learned to live with it. But right now, standing in a kitchen with a poisoned goblet and a man who wouldn't listen, she hated it more than she'd ever hated anything. Marcus picked up the tray. I'm taking this to the hall. If you're not going to help, get out of my way. Lucy stepped in front of him. For a moment, they stood there, a mute Omega, in a worn dress and a beta twice her size, with a tray full of death. Then Marcus sighed. Move, Lucy. She didn't. Move. Lucy's wolf surged, hot and bright and furious, and for the first time in her life, she felt something answer from deep inside her chest. Not a voice. Something older. Something that didn't need words. The torches in the kitchen flickered. Marcus's eyes widened. What? A voice cut through the tension. Lucy? Lucy spun. Sarah stood in the doorway. Young, kind-faced, one of the few people in the moon court who'd ever bothered to learn Lucy's signs. She was a low-ranking beta, barely above Lucy in status, but she had a good heart. She'd spent months teaching herself sign language just so Lucy wouldn't be completely alone. Sarah's gaze flicked between Lucy and Marcus. What's going on? Lucy's hands flew, desperate and fast. Poison. Goblet. Andrew will die. Today. Please believe me. Sarah's face went pale. What? I saw it. Vision. Dream. I don't know. But it's real. Someone's going to poison the Regent. It's happening today. Marcus scoffed. She's been acting strange all morning, saying the moon wine is poisoned. It's not. I checked it myself. Sarah looked at Lucy. Really looked. And Lucy saw the moment Sarah realized this wasn't panic or paranoia. This was certainty. Marcus, Sarah said carefully, what if she's right? She's not. But what if she is? What if something got into the goblet after you checked? What if... Then we test it, Marcus said flatly. We'll have a healer test it before it goes to the Regent. But I'm not throwing away ceremonial moon wine because a mute Omega had a bad dream. Lucy's stomach twisted. A test would take time. Time they might not have. And even if they tested it, would anyone believe her? Would they act fast enough? Or would they dismiss her the way they always did, the way Marcus just had, until it was too late? Sarah touched Lucy's arm gently. Come with me. We'll talk to someone. We'll figure this out. Who? Lucy signed. Who will listen to me? Sarah hesitated, because that was the problem, wasn't it? Lucy G. Badger had no voice, no rank, no power. In the Moon Court, that meant she had no right to be heard, even if she was right, even if someone was about to die. Lucy looked at the goblet one last time, her wolf howling in her blood, and made a choice. If no one would listen to her signs, she'd have to find another way to scream. She just had to figure out how to do it before Andrew Davidson raised that goblet to his lips. She had less than 2 hours. Sarah led Lucy through the palace corridors at a pace just shy of running. We'll go to the Regent directly, Sarah whispered, though no one was around to hear. Before the ceremony starts. If we can get to him before the court convenes. Lucy's hands moved quickly. He won't believe me either. He might. Andrew Davidson isn't like the others. He listens. He's fair. Fair doesn't mean he'll believe a mute Omega over his advisors. Sarah didn't argue, because Lucy was probably right. They turned a corner and nearly collided with a group of visiting alphas. Tall, armor-clad, their pack sense sharp and territorial. The wolves barely glanced at Lucy and Sarah, too busy talking strategy and alliances to notice 2 low-ranking females. Good. Lucy preferred being invisible. They reached the great hall just as the massive doors were swinging open. Lucy's breath caught. She'd seen this room in her vision, but somehow it was worse in real life. Bigger, colder, more suffocating. The great hall was built to intimidate, vaulted ceilings that seemed to stretch into forever. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine, columns carved with wolves in battle, their teeth bared, their eyes hollow. Banners hung from the rafters, 30 of them, 1 for each allied pack, their colours bold and blood-stained, and at the centre of it all, the dais. 3 thrones, only 1 occupied. Alpha Regent Andrew Davidson sat with the kind of stillness that came from years of controlling a court that wanted to tear itself apart. He was young for a regent, late 20s maybe, with dark hair and winter blue eyes that seemed to calculate everything. He wore no crown, just a heavy mantle that looked like it weighed more than armor. To his right stood Kyle Dumas, captain of the Royal Guard. He was exactly what you'd expect a Royal Guard captain to be. Broad-shouldered, stone-faced, dangerous. His hand never strayed far from his sword. His eyes never stopped scanning the room for threats. To Andrew's left stood James. Lord James, the court's favoured strategist. The man Lucy had seen smiling while Andrew Davidson choked on poisoned wine. James looked like someone who'd never been told no in his life. Handsome in the way predators are handsome. Sharp features, easy smile, confident posture. He wore fine clothes, not armor, because men like James didn't need to fight their own battles. They convinced other people to fight for them. Right now, he was leaning close to Andrew, speaking quietly, his expression concerned and earnest. Lucy's wolf growled. Not a sound, just a feeling. Hot and furious and certain. Liar. Murderer. Traitor. Lucy, Sarah hissed, pulling her forward. Come on, before they start. But they were already starting. The hall was filling fast. Alphas taking their places, betas lining the walls, omegas kneeling in the spaces between. The hierarchy was visible in every placement, every posture. Power flowed down from the dais like water, and everyone knew exactly where they stood in the current. Lucy and Sarah were at the bottom, which meant they had no right to approach the dais, no right to speak, no right to interrupt. But Lucy moved anyway, her feet carrying her forward before her brain could list all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Sarah grabbed her arm. Lucy, wait, we need a plan. Lucy pulled free and kept walking. She could feel eyes turning toward her, whispers starting. Wolves didn't like disruptions, especially not from Omegas who were supposed to know their place. Lucy didn't care. She crossed the marble floor, her worn dress a splash of faded blue in a sea of steel and silk. She didn't stop until she reached the base of the dais steps. Andrew Davidson looked down at her, his expression unreadable. Kyle Dumas shifted, his hand moving to his sword. Not threatening, just ready. James smiled slightly, as if Lucy had just done something amusing. Lucy's hands moved, fast and desperate. Danger. Poison. Don't drink the moon wine. Please. Andrew's brow furrowed. He glanced at James, who shrugged with elegant confusion. Your Majesty, Sarah said quickly, stepping up beside Lucy. Lucy's been having visions. She saw you drinking from the ceremonial goblet. She saw you collapse. She thinks someone's trying to poison you. The whispers in the hall grew louder. Andrew leaned forward slightly, studying Lucy with those calculating blue eyes. Visions? Lucy nodded frantically. She signed again. I saw it. Clear. Real. You drank. You fell. Today. The ceremony. Please believe me. Can she speak? Andrew asked Sarah. No, Your Majesty. She's been mute since she was 13. And she's had visions before. Sarah hesitated. Not that I know of, but she's never been wrong about feelings. When something's wrong, she knows. Feelings, James said softly, his voice smooth as silk. My regent, with all due respect, we cannot halt a ceremony of this importance because an Omega had a bad dream. Lucy's hands flew. Not a dream. A vision. A warning. James looked at her with something that might have been pity if it weren't so condescending. I'm sure it felt very real to you, dear, but you must understand. Today is stressful. The entire court is on edge. Sometimes our fears manifest as nightmares. It doesn't mean they're prophecy. I saw you, Lucy signed, pointing directly at James. I saw you smile when he fell. The hall went quiet. James's expression didn't change, not even a flicker. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I don't believe I understand her gestures. He did. Lucy could tell by the way his eyes tracked her hands, the way his smile tightened just slightly. He understood perfectly. He just didn't care. Andrew looked between them, conflict clear on his face. Behind him, Lucy could see the ceremonial table being prepared, the silver goblet being placed, the moon wine being poured. Lucy, Andrew said, and there was something almost kind in his voice. Almost. I appreciate your concern, truly. But Lord James is right. We have 30 allied packs watching us today. If I cancel the ceremony because of an unverified dream, they'll see weakness. They'll question my judgment. Some of them are already looking for excuses to break their oaths. You'll die, Lucy signed, tears stinging her eyes. Please, test the wine. Check the goblet. Something. Anything. We've already checked it, James said smoothly. I personally oversaw the preparations. Everything has been tested. Everything is safe. Kyle Dumas spoke for the first time, his voice like gravel. The girl seemed certain. James turned to him with a patient smile. The girl is frightened. That's understandable. But we cannot run the moon court on the fears of every Omega who has a nightmare. Lucy wanted to scream. Wanted to grab Andrew by his ceremonial mantle and shake him until he listened. Wanted to make him see what she'd seen. The poison, the collapse, the smile on James's face. But she had no voice. And in the moon court, silence meant nothing. Andrew stood, and the hall fell respectfully quiet. Lucy, I'm grateful for your concern, but I cannot disrupt this ceremony. You're dismissed. Dismissed. The word hit like a physical blow. Lucy shook her head, signing frantically. No, please, you don't understand. Enough, Andrew said, and there was command in his voice now, the kind that made wolves' spines straighten and their wolves submit. Guards. 2 royal guards moved forward immediately. Lucy backed up a step, But there was nowhere to go. The guards weren't cruel about it. They didn't need to be. They simply took her arms, firm and professional, and began guiding her away from the dais. Lucy twisted, trying to pull free. She looked back at Andrew, at Kyle, at Sarah, desperately hoping someone would stop this. Sarah's face was pale, her hands clasped like she was praying. Kyle's jaw was tight, his eyes dark with something that might have been doubt. Andrew had already turned away, accepting the goblet from a servant. And James was watching Lucy with that same mild smile. Not triumphant, not worried, just satisfied, like he'd expected this exact outcome. Lucy's wolf roared in her blood, so loud she felt it in her bones. Torches along the walls flickered. The air pressure changed just slightly, like the palace itself had inhaled. The guards hesitated, feeling it too. Something wrong, something shifting. But then the moment passed, and they continued pulling Lucy toward the exit. She could see the goblet in Andrew's hand now, silver and gleaming and full of death. He was lifting it, getting ready for the toast, getting ready to drink. And Lucy G. Badger, the mute Omega, the ghost girl, the one no one listened to. She had seconds to decide. Let them drag her away. Stay safe. Stay silent. Watch Andrew Davidson die and tell herself she'd tried. Or break every rule, risk everything, and do something so desperate, so impossible, that the Moon Court would never forget it. Lucy made her choice. She stopped pulling away from the guards, and instead she threw herself forward. What happened next would change everything. Lucy threw herself forward with everything she had. The guards weren't expecting it. They'd been trained to escort, not wrestle. Their grips loosened for half a second, just long enough for Lucy to wrench one arm free and lunge toward the dais. Her fingers stretched out, reaching for the goblet in Andrew's hand. She didn't make it 3 steps. A guard caught her around the waist and yanked her backward. Lucy's feet left the ground. She kicked, twisted, clawed at air, silent and desperate and furious. The court laughed. Not everyone, not loudly, but enough that Lucy heard it. The ripple of amusement, the whispered mockery. Look at her. The mute Omega is having a fit. Someone should teach her to know her place. Lucy's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. She thrashed harder, but the guard's grip was iron. Her worn dress tore at the shoulder. Her knee cracked against marble as he forced her down. Pain shot up her leg, sharp and bright. She didn't care. All she cared about was the goblet. Andrew was raising it now. The ceremonial toast. The moment 30 allied packs were waiting for. The moment James had been planning. No, no, no. Lucy's hands moved frantically, signing to anyone, everyone, no one. Poison. Stop. Please. Enough of this, James said, his voice carrying across the hall with calm authority. Guards, remove her. She's clearly disturbed. Disturbed. Like she was broken. Like her warning was madness. The guard hauled Lucy to her feet and she saw Sarah push forward from the crowd. Small, terrified, but trying. Wait, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Please, just wait. What if she's right? What if there's even a chance? Lady Sarah. James turned to her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Your loyalty to your friend is admirable, but you're embarrassing yourself. Stand down. Sarah froze. Her face went pale. Because James wasn't just dismissing her. He was warning her. One more word, and she'd be next. Lucy met Sarah's eyes and saw the apology there. The fear. The helplessness of someone who wanted to help but couldn't risk everything. Lucy understood. She'd lived that way for 7 years, keeping her head down, staying small, choosing survival over standing up. But not today. Today, someone was going to die if she didn't do something. And Lucy G. Badger was done being silent. The guard started dragging her toward the exit again. Lucy dug her heels in, but her worn shoes had no grip on polished marble. She was sliding backward, inch by inch, while Andrew raised the goblet to his lips. Lucy's wolf exploded in her chest. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't gradual. It was like something caged and starving had finally snapped its chains. Heat flooded Lucy's body, burning, primal, ancient. Her vision sharpened, her hearing amplified. She could smell everything, steel and sweat and stone and something else. Something bitter and wrong coming from the goblet. Poison. She'd been right. She'd been right. And no one had listened. And now Andrew Davidson was going to drink death while the moon court watched. Not on my watch. Lucy stopped fighting the guard's grip. Instead, she used it. She threw her weight forward and down, dropping like dead weight. The guard, unprepared for the sudden shift, stumbled. His hold loosened. Lucy twisted free and ran, not toward the exit, toward the dais, toward Andrew, toward the goblet. Shouts erupted behind her. Boots thundered on marble. Kyle Dumas was moving. She saw him in her peripheral vision, fast and lethal, closing the distance. But Lucy was closer, and Lucy was desperate. Andrew's lips touched the rim of the goblet. Lucy dove. Her body hit the steps hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. Her hands reached out. Not graceful, not controlled, just pure frantic need. Her fingertips brushed the goblet, and the world stopped. Not metaphorically, actually stopped. The air pressure slammed down like a physical weight. Every wolf in the hall gasped and staggered. Torches guttered and flared. The chandeliers swung on their chains, crystal chiming like wind chimes in a storm. Andrew dropped the goblet. It hit the marble and shattered. Silver and moon wine and something dark spreading across the floor like blood. Lucy was still on the steps, hand outstretched, frozen in the moment of contact. And inside her chest, the wolf wasn't pacing anymore. It was awake. Heat poured through Lucy's veins, not painful, but overwhelming. Like her blood had turned to lightning. Like her bones had turned to steel. Like something that had been sleeping inside her for 22 years had finally opened its eyes and remembered what it was. The torches flared so bright they turned white. The banners snapped taut, as if a wind was blowing through the hall. But the air was perfectly still. And every wolf in the moon court felt it. The pressure, the power. The thing that lived in legends and bedtime stories and warnings carved into ancient stone. Lucy's hands were glowing. Not brightly. Just a faint shimmer, like moonlight on water. But it was enough to make grown alphas take a step back. She looked up at Andrew Davidson. He was staring at her, not with anger, not with dismissal, with shock. And something else. Recognition. Kyle Dumas had his sword half drawn, but he wasn't moving. His eyes were locked on Lucy like he was seeing her for the first time. James stood frozen, his smile finally gone. The great hall was silent. Not the oppressive silence of power and politics, the breathless silence of 100 wolves who'd just realized they'd been wrong. Lucy lifted her shaking hand and pointed at the shattered goblet, at the dark liquid spreading across the marble, at the faint, sickly shimmer rising from it like steam. She looked at Andrew and signed 2 words. I told you. And then the silver wolf inside her blood surged again, stronger this time, demanding, undeniable. And Lucy felt something tear. Not her body. Reality. The air behind her rippled like water. Light poured through the crack, cold and bright and ancient, and something stepped into the moon court. Something that made every wolf in the hall drop to their knees. Not because they chose to, because they had no choice. Drop a comment if you saw this coming, because what happens next is even more impossible. The wolf that stepped through the tear in reality was impossible. Too large, too bright, too real to exist inside stone walls and political games. Its fur was the color of moonlight, not white, not grey, but silver that seemed to glow from within. Its eyes were pale fire, ancient and knowing. When it moved, the marble beneath its paws didn't crack or scratch. It simply was, as if the palace had been built around it and forgotten. Every wolf in the moon court hit their knees. It wasn't a choice. Lucy felt it too. The command in her spine. The weight pressing down on her shoulders. the instinct older than language that screamed, submit, bow, surrender. But she didn't kneel, because the wolf wasn't separate from her. It was her. Lucy could feel the connection like a rope tied around her heart, pulling, binding, connecting. Every breath the silver wolf took, she felt in her own lungs. Every step it made, she felt in her own bones. This wasn't possession. This was recognition. The wolf lowered its massive head until its breath warmed the back of Lucy's neck. It didn't touch her. It didn't need to. The bond snapped into place like a lock finding its key, and Lucy understood. Finally, terribly, completely understood. She wasn't broken. She'd never been broken. She'd been waiting for the moment she'd be desperate enough, furious enough, righteous enough to unlock the thing sleeping in her blood. The silver wolf, the ancient guardian, the myth that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Lucy G. Badger had just manifested a legend. On the dais, Andrew Davidson was still standing. Barely. His knees were locked, his jaw clenched, fighting the pressure that had brought every other wolf down. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His winter blue eyes were wide with something between awe and terror. Kyle Dumas had dropped to one knee, his hand still on his sword, but he wasn't drawing it. He was staring at Lucy like she'd just rewritten every rule he'd ever learned. The visiting alphas were on the ground, heads bowed, shoulders shaking with the effort of not collapsing completely. Some of them looked angry. Some looked terrified. All of them looked like they finally understood they'd underestimated the mute Omega. And James. Lord James was on his knees near the steps, one hand braced against the marble to keep from falling flat. For the first time since Lucy had met him, his perfect composure was cracked. His smile was gone. His confidence was gone. And in its place was something sharp and calculating and trapped. Lucy turned to face him fully. The silver wolf moved with her. Not behind her, but around her, circling like smoke, like moonlight, like inevitability. The great hall was so quiet Lucy could hear her own heartbeat. She lifted her hands and signed with brutal, deliberate clarity. You. James's eyes snapped to hers. You put poison in the goblet. A ripple went through the court, whispers choked off mid-breath, armor shifting, wolves trying to process what they were seeing. James opened his mouth to speak, to deny, to deflect, to spin another lie. No sound came out. His eyes went wide. He tried again, lips moving, throat working. Nothing. The silver wolf's gaze locked onto him, and the pressure in the room doubled. Wolves gasped. Some collapsed completely, unable to hold themselves up anymore. The chandeliers swayed violently overhead, crystal chiming like alarm bells. Lucy felt it too, the power flowing through her, ancient and wild and angry. It recognized lies the way a predator recognizes prey. And James reeked of deception. She signed again, each gesture sharp as a blade. You tried to kill the regent. James shook his head frantically, still mouthing denials that wouldn't come. You smiled. I saw you. In my vision. You smiled when he fell. Lucy took a step down from the dais, then another. The silver wolf moved with her, its presence suffocating, inescapable. Why? James's face had gone pale. His hands were shaking. He looked toward the exit, calculating, desperate. The silver wolf growled. Not loud. It didn't need to be loud. The sound was felt more than heard, a vibration that rolled through the marble floor and up through everyone's bones. It said, You will not run. You will not hide. You will answer. Lucy stopped directly in front of James, looking down at him for the first time in her life. The man who'd dismissed her, who'd called her disturbed, who'd tried to have her dragged away while Andrew drank poison. She signed one more question. Who else? Because Lucy had lived in the Moon Court long enough to know that men like James didn't work alone. Conspiracies needed allies. Betrayals needed accomplices. Someone had helped him. Someone had looked the other way. Someone had made sure the poison reached the goblet without being caught. James's mouth opened again, Whether to confess or lie, Lucy would never know, because that's when his voice returned. Not his words. A scream. Raw and terrified and barely human. He lurched to his feet and ran, not toward the exit, but toward Andrew, his hand reaching inside his coat, pulling something out. A blade. Small, poisoned, desperate. Kyle Dumas was already moving, sword flashing, but the silver wolf was faster. It didn't attack James. It simply looked at him, and James froze mid-step. Blade raised, face twisted with fear and fury, and something that might have been relief. Like he'd been waiting for someone to stop him. Like he'd been choking on secrets for so long that exposure felt like mercy. The blade clattered to the marble. James's knees buckled. And in a voice barely above a whisper, he said the words that would shatter the moon court. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just me. Those 4 words hit the moon court like a shockwave. The hall erupted, not into violence, but into something worse. Controlled chaos. Whispers that cut like knives. Wolves looking at each other with sudden suspicion, wondering who else was involved, who else had betrayed them. Andrew's voice cut through the noise like steel. Kyle, secure him. Kyle Dumas moved immediately. The silver wolf's presence had lessened just enough that he could stand without shaking. He crossed to James in 3 strides, grabbed his arm, and hauled him upright. James didn't resist. He was staring at Lucy with an expression she couldn't quite read. Fear, yes, but something else underneath. Something calculating. Seal the hall, Andrew commanded. No one leaves until we know exactly what happened here. Guards rushed to obey, throwing the massive doors shut with a boom that echoed like thunder. The visiting alphas were standing now, the pressure from Lucy's wolf finally easing enough to let them breathe. But they didn't look grateful. They looked angry. You expect us to stay? One of them demanded, a broad-shouldered alpha with scars across his face. To be trapped here while you sort out your court's betrayals? I expect you to cooperate, Andrew said coldly, unless you have something to hide. The scarred alpha's eyes narrowed, but he didn't argue further. Andrew turned his attention to the shattered goblet. Moon wine and poison spread across the marble in a dark stain that seemed to shimmer with sickly light. Bring a healer, Andrew ordered. I want that tested. Now. A healer rushed forward, an older woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. She knelt beside the spill, careful not to touch it, and leaned close to smell. Her face went pale. Nightshade extract, she said quietly, mixed with something else. Wolf's bane, maybe. Enough to kill an alpha in seconds. She looked up at Andrew. Your Majesty, if you'd drunk this, I know, Andrew said. His gaze cut to Lucy. Still, standing near the dais with the silver wolf circling her like living moonlight. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite gratitude, not quite apology, but acknowledgement. Lucy had been right, and he'd dismissed her. James laughed, sharp and bitter. Of course it's poison. I never denied that. Kyle's grip on his arm tightened. Then why? I'm not the one who put it there, James said, his voice rising. Don't you see? She did. He pointed at Lucy with his free hand. The mute Omega. She had access to the kitchens. She could have poisoned it herself and then played the hero, manifesting that thing, he gestured at the silver wolf, to make herself look innocent. The whispers started again, louder this time. Lucy's stomach dropped. No, he wasn't going to twist this. He wasn't going to make her the villain. She signed frantically. I tried to warn you. I tried to stop it. After you poisoned it, James said smoothly, his composure returning now that he had a strategy. Very clever. Poison the wine, then stage a dramatic rescue. Who would suspect the helpless mute? That's insane, Kyle said flatly. Is it? James looked at Andrew. Think about it, my regent. She has no pack, no family, no loyalty to anyone here. And now suddenly she manifests a power that forces us all to our knees. How convenient that it happened today, during the most important ceremony of the decade. Lucy's hands shook as she signed. You're lying. Am I? Or did you orchestrate this entire thing to gain power in a court that's ignored you for years? The doubt rippled through the room. Lucy could see it on faces. Not everyone, but enough. Enough wolves who'd rather believe the mute Omega was ambitious and dangerous than believe one of their own lords had tried to murder their regent. What about Sarah? James pressed. She's the only one who can interpret the mute signs. They could be working together. Sarah tampered with the goblet. Lucy staged the warning, "No." Sarah's voice cracked through the hall. She pushed forward from the crowd, her face pale but determined. "That's not... I didn't..." "Didn't you?" James turned his smile on her. "You were in the kitchens this morning. You had access. You're the only one who truly understands her. Tell me, Lady Sarah, what did Lucy promise you in exchange for your help?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Nothing. I didn't do anything. Lucy came to me because she was scared, because she knew something was wrong. I tried to help her warn you, but you failed?" James supplied. "Or did you succeed exactly as planned?" "Enough." Andrew's voice was ice. "James, you confessed. You admitted it wasn't just you. That implies guilt." "I admitted there was a conspiracy," James corrected. "I didn't say I was part of it. I said I knew about it, and I know exactly who's behind it." He looked directly at Lucy. "Her. If you're thinking, no way he's getting away with this, keep watching. The truth is about to get a lot more complicated." The silver wolf snarled. The sound rattled the chandeliers. Torches flared. Every wolf in the room felt their spines lock. Lucy's hands moved, sharp and angry. "You tried to kill Andrew. I saw it. I saw you smile." "You saw what you wanted to see," James said. "A vision. Convenient. Unprovable. The perfect excuse." Andrew stood silent, his jaw working, clearly weighing options. Politics versus truth. Alliance versus justice. Lucy could see the calculation in his eyes. If he accused James, a favoured lord, based only on a mute Omega's visions and manifestation, he risked losing support. If he believed James's counter-accusation, he kept the peace. But Lucy would pay the price. Andrew's gaze moved between them. James, composed and confident. Lucy, silent and desperate. Then Andrew looked at the shattered goblet, at the poison, at the healer's pale face. He made his choice. "Detain Lord James," Andrew said quietly, "and seal this hall. No one leaves. No one speaks to anyone outside these walls. We investigate this properly." Relief flooded through Lucy so fast she almost collapsed. Kyle forced James's hands behind his back. Other guards moved in to help. And James smiled. Not the confident smile he'd worn before. Something else. Something satisfied. His eyes flicked toward the crowd. A tiny gesture. Barely noticeable. But Lucy saw it. A signal. And somewhere in the mass of alphas and betas and guards, someone received it. The conspiracy wasn't over. It was just beginning. The interrogations began immediately. Kyle Dumas worked like a machine. Efficient, thorough, relentless. He questioned guards who'd been on duty, servants who'd prepared the ceremony, anyone who'd been near the goblet or the wine cellar in the past 3 days. Lucy watched from a corner of the hall. The silver wolf still manifested beside her. Smaller now, less overwhelming, but present. A constant reminder of what she was, what she'd become. The court didn't know what to do with her. Some wolves kept their distance, eyeing her wolf with suspicion and fear. Others approached carefully, reverently, as if she'd become something holy. One older beta even tried to kneel before her until Lucy frantically signed for her to stop. She didn't want worship. She wanted answers. Andrew had placed her under guard, not imprisonment, he'd said, but protection. 2 royal guards stood nearby, their expressions neutral but their eyes watchful. Lucy wasn't sure if they were keeping others away from her or keeping her from interfering. Probably both. Sarah sat beside her, quiet and pale. She hadn't said much since James's accusation. Lucy could see the fear in her eyes, the knowledge that she was caught in something bigger than both of them. Lucy's hand found Sarah's and squeezed gently. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have been braver. I should have made them listen. Lucy signed with her free hand. You tried. That's more than anyone else did. It wasn't enough. You're here now. That's what matters. They sat in silence while Kyle interrogated a kitchen servant, a young man who looked terrified. Lucy's wolf stirred slightly, sensing something, but then settled. Not lies, just fear. Kyle dismissed him and moved to the next. Hours passed. The investigation went in circles. Everyone had an alibi. Everyone had been somewhere else. No one had seen anything suspicious. It was late afternoon when Sarah leaned close and whispered, Lucy, there's something I need to tell you. Lucy turned to face her fully. Sarah glanced at the guards, then lowered her voice even more. 3 nights ago, I couldn't sleep. I was walking the halls and I heard voices in one of the private council chambers. Lucy's hands moved. Whose voices? James. And someone else. I couldn't see who. The door was barely cracked, but they were arguing about timing, about making sure the transfer happened during the ceremony. Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. I didn't understand what they meant then, but now. Transfer? That's what they said, that the ceremony was the perfect time for a clean transfer of power. And James said. Sarah swallowed hard. He said, the regent won't see it coming, and when the mute does her little warning dance, no one will believe her anyway. Lucy's blood went cold. They'd known. James had known she'd try to warn Andrew. He'd planned for it. He'd counted on the court dismissing her. Who was he talking to? Lucy signed urgently. I don't know. I swear. I was too scared to look. I just ran back to my room and tried to forget I'd heard anything. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. I'm sorry. I should have told someone. But who would have believed me? I'm barely ranked higher than you. Lucy pulled Sarah into a hug, feeling her shake with suppressed sobs. The silver wolf lifted its head, ears pricked forward, alert. Lucy felt it too, that sensation of wrongness, of lies nearby. She pulled back from Sarah and looked around the hall. Kyle was questioning another guard now. Andrew was speaking with the scarred Alpha from earlier. Everything looked normal, but something was off. The wolf's eyes tracked across the room, and Lucy followed its gaze. There, a royal guard standing near one of the exits. Young, nervous. His hand kept moving to his belt, then away, then back again. Lucy stood slowly. The silver wolf rose with her. The guard noticed. His face went pale, and then he ran. Stop him, Kyle roared. But the guard was already through the door, sprinting down the corridor beyond. Kyle and 3 other guards gave chase. Lucy started to follow, but her guards blocked her path. Stay here, one of them said firmly. Regent's orders. Lucy's wolf snarled in frustration, but she stayed put. Minutes later, Kyle returned, dragging the young guard by his collar. The man's face was bleeding. He'd fought clearly and lost badly. Andrew stood. Speak. The guard shook his head frantically. I can't. They'll kill my family. Please. Who will kill your family? I don't know names. I was told to deliver a package to the wine cellar 3 days ago. That's all. I didn't know what was in it. I swear I didn't know. Kyle's voice was deadly quiet. Who gave you the package? The guard's eyes darted around the room, terrified. It came through command channels. Official seal. I thought it was legitimate. Whose seal? The guard's voice broke. Royal Guard channels, sir. It came from inside the guard. The hall went silent. Kyle's face had gone stone cold. That's impossible. Every transaction is logged. Every seal is tracked. I know, sir, but it was there. Official seal. Official orders. Andrew's voice cut through the tension. Who has access to guard seals? Kyle's jaw tightened. Command level only. Captains and above. How many captains? 7. Kyle's eyes swept the room, landing on the other senior guards present. And me. Lucy's wolf growled low and deep. One of them was a traitor. The scarred Alpha spoke first. We demand formal judgment. Andrew looked up from the interrogation, his face weary. Judgment of whom? Her. The Alpha pointed at Lucy. The mute. She manifests an ancient power. She accuses a lord without proof. And now we discover betrayal in your own guard. Too many coincidences. The allied packs want answers. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the visiting wolves. Andrew's jaw tightened. Lucy G. Badger saved my life. Or staged an elaborate plot to gain power, another Alpha countered. We don't know which. That's why we demand judgment. Let her prove her innocence before the court. She can't speak, Kyle said flatly, stepping forward. How is she supposed to defend herself? That's not our problem. Lucy felt the pressure building. Not from her wolf, but from politics. From alliances Andrew couldn't afford to lose. From wolves who'd rather believe a mute Omega was dangerous than admit their own system was broken. Andrew met Lucy's eyes across the hall. She saw the conflict there, the choice between protecting her and protecting his rule. Very well, Andrew said quietly. Lucy will be given the opportunity to prove her claims. Kyle's face darkened. Your Majesty, I've made my decision, Captain. Lucy's guards moved her forward, back to the center of the hall where this had all started. The silver wolf paced beside her, agitated but controlled. The scarred Alpha crossed his arms. Prove that Lord James tried to kill the regent. Prove you didn't orchestrate this. Prove you deserve to wield that power. Lucy's hands moved, sharp and angry. I already proved it. The poison was real. The poison was real, James called from where he was being held. But who's to say you didn't put it there yourself? Your gift forces people to kneel. Convenient way to seize control, isn't it? The silver wolf's eyes locked onto James, and Lucy felt something click into place. An understanding of what her wolf could really do. It didn't just force submission. It recognized truth. Lucy walked slowly toward the guards holding James. Her wolf moved with her, and the pressure in the room built with every step. She stopped in front of him and signed carefully. Did you plan to poison Andrew Davidson? No, James said smoothly. The silver wolf snarled. The sound hit James like a physical blow. He gasped, doubling over as if punched in the gut. Lucy signed again. Did you plan to poison Andrew Davidson? James gritted his teeth, tried to hold on to the lie, but the wolf's presence was suffocating, crushing, demanding truth like oxygen. Yes, he choked out. Yes, I planned it. The court erupted. Kyle drew his sword. Andrew stood, face hard as winter. The visiting Alphas exchanged shocked looks. Why? Andrew demanded. Lucy signed the question. Why? James looked at her with hatred burning in his eyes. Because weak rulers don't deserve power. Because you were going to give too much away in these treaties. Because someone needed to take control before this court fell apart. And you plan to blame Lucy? Kyle's voice was deadly quiet. James laughed bitterly. The mute Omega with no pack and no voice. Who would miss her? I'd have her executed for the regent's murder. Claim her wolf as spoils and consolidate power before anyone could question it. Lucy's stomach turned. He'd planned her death from the beginning. Who else was involved? Andrew demanded. James's smile returned, cold and sharp. You think it's just me? You think I'm the only one who's tired of your weakness? There are others. More than you know. And they're already... The palace alarms screamed to life. Bells clanging, horns blowing. The sound of distant shouting and steel on steel. Kyle's face went pale. That's the North Tower. We're under attack. Chaos erupted. The great hall doors burst open. Not guards, conspirators. Wolves in royal armor with treason in their eyes. They moved like a coordinated strike team, weapons drawn, targeting specific people. Andrew, Kyle, the loyal captains, Sarah. Protect the regent, Kyle roared, his sword already moving. He cut down the first attacker in a spray of blood and betrayal. The visiting Alphas scattered, some drawing weapons to help, others backing toward exits, unwilling to die for someone else's civil war. Lucy's wolf surged, massive and furious. The pressure slammed down on everyone, but Lucy fought to control it. to target only the traitors, not the innocents caught in the crossfire. It was harder than she'd expected. The wolf wanted to crush everything, wanted to make everyone kneel until the threat was eliminated. But Lucy wasn't a weapon. She was a person. And people made choices. She focused on the attacking wolves, the ones with blades raised, with murder in their scents. The silver wolf's power pinpointed them like arrows finding targets. 3 conspirators dropped mid-charge, pinned to the ID ground by invisible weight. Kyle used the opening. His blade flashed, cutting through the confusion with brutal efficiency. Royal guards rallied around him, the loyal ones, the ones who hadn't been corrupted. But there were too many traitors. More were pouring in from other entrances. This wasn't a spontaneous attack. This was planned, coordinated, a coup that had been building for weeks, maybe months. Lucy saw Andrew fighting near the dais, his own blade drawn, defending himself against a captain Lucy recognized, one of Kyle's own command. The betrayal on Andrew's face was worse than the physical danger. She moved toward him, her wolf clearing a path. Then she heard Sarah scream. Lucy spun. Sarah was near the shattered goblet, backing away from 2 conspirators who'd cornered her. One of them was the young guard who'd confessed. Apparently he'd been playing both sides, waiting to see who'd win. "She knows too much," the guard said to his companion. "James's orders. Kill her and destroy the evidence." Sarah held up her hands desperately. "Please, I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. You know the mute signs. That makes you a liability." The guard raised his blade. Lucy's wolf roared. The sound was physical. Windows shattered, tapestries tore. Every wolf in the hall, loyalist and traitor alike, staggered under the weight of ancient fury. Lucy ran, not strategically, not carefully, just pure desperate speed. She reached Sarah as the blade descended and threw herself between them. The silver wolf manifested fully, not around Lucy, but in front of her, solid as steel and twice as deadly. The blade struck the wolf's shoulder and shattered like glass. The guard stumbled backward, eyes wide with terror. Lucy's wolf didn't attack him, didn't tear him apart, just held him frozen, its pale fire eyes burning with judgment. Lucy turned to Sarah and pulled her close. "Are you hurt?" Sarah shook her head, sobbing with relief. Lucy looked at the shattered evidence around them, the goblet pieces, the spilled poison. She understood now why they'd targeted Sarah. Without someone to interpret Lucy's signs, without the physical proof, James could still claim innocence. But they'd failed. Sarah was alive. The evidence remained. And Lucy had just proven to everyone watching that she wasn't a threat. She was a protector. The fighting was ending now. Kyle had the remaining conspirators surrounded. Some had surrendered. Others were dead. Andrew stood breathing hard, his ceremonial robes torn and bloodied, but alive. James was still being restrained, watching his coup fall apart with cold calculation in his eyes. "It's over," Kyle said, wiping blood from his blade. "We have them all." But Lucy's wolf was still alert, still sensing something wrong. Her eyes swept the hall. The conspirators were captured. The loyalists were regrouping. Everything looked secure, except there. A figure in the shadows near the eastern exit. Not in armor. In the fine robes of an advisor or lord. Moving carefully, quietly, while everyone else was distracted by the aftermath. Lucy pointed. Kyle turned. "Stop." But the figure was already through the door, running. "That's not one of the conspirators we identified," Kyle said grimly. "That's someone higher." Andrew's face went pale. "Someone who's been here the whole time. Someone we trusted. The real conspiracy leader. And they'd just escaped." 3 days later, the Moon Court reconvened. The traitors had been sentenced. James would spend the rest of his life in the deepest cells, stripped of title and honor. The corrupted guards faced execution. The escaped conspirator, a senior advisor named Marcus Thorne, was being hunted across 3 territories. But today wasn't about punishment. Today was about recognition. Lucy stood in the great hall again, but everything was different. She wore a simple dress, her choice, but someone had woven silver thread through the hem. Her white blonde hair was clean and braided. The silver wolf stood beside her, calm now, watchful. Andrew Davidson addressed the assembled court. Lucy G. Badger saved this realm, not with a voice, not with rank, with courage, with truth, with a power we thought was lost to legend. He paused. She warned us, and we didn't listen. That ends today. He descended from the dais and stood before Lucy as an equal. The Moon Court formally recognizes you, not as Omega, not as servant, as guardian, as the one who holds truth and protects the innocent. Lucy's hands moved. I don't want power over others. I know, Andrew said. That's exactly why you deserve it. He turned to the court. Lucy will serve justice, not politics. She cannot be commanded. She cannot be used. And she will answer only to her own conscience and the ancient oath her wolf represents. Kyle Dumas stepped forward and knelt, not from magical pressure, but from choice. I pledge my sword to her protection, as she protected us. One by one, the loyal guards followed, then the visiting alphas, then the betas and omegas who'd watched Lucy risk everything. The court knelt, not because they were forced, because they chose to honor her. Lucy felt tears on her cheeks. Sarah squeezed her hand, smiling through her own tears. Andrew met her eyes. Will you stay? Will you help us rebuild what was broken? Lucy looked at the kneeling court, at Kyle's steady presence, at Sarah's friendship, at Andrew's genuine respect. She signed, yes, but on my terms. Wouldn't have it any other way. As Lucy accepted her new place, the silver wolf lifted its head toward the distant windows. Its ears pricked forward. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, beyond the territories, something was stirring. Something old answering the call of the silver wolf's return. Lucy felt it too, a pull in her blood, a promise unfulfilled. Her story wasn't over. It had only just begun. So, what do you think? Was Andrew right to doubt Lucy at first? Or should he have listened from the start? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm reading every single one. And here's the question that keeps me up at night. If you had Lucy's power, the ability to force truth from anyone, would you use it? Or would that make you just as dangerous as the conspirators? If you want to like this story, hit that subscribe button. And if you love this story, kindly support us by checking out other videos on the channel. This is just the beginning of Lucy's legend, and I'll see you in the next one.